Christian, a lot of tech companies on the list, as there are every year. I find it so interesting that the companies at the top are so diverse. Number one, Bain, which is a consulting firm. Number two is NVIDIA, obviously a tech company. Number three is In-N-Out Burger. What do all three of these companies have in common?
Yeah, it is cool to see such great representation across different diverse industries, and really shows you any company in any industry can be a best place to work. What we've seen, particularly this year, that's been a new phenomenon and something like a key theme across all of our best place to work winners is that, with the pandemic, with COVID going on, employers who put their employees first, and particularly their health, well-being, and safety first, did really well in this year's list. Among many other things that many of our best places to work winners have traditionally done.
Talk to us about the tech companies on the list. 28 tech companies in all, which is quite a showing. And obviously, a number of tech companies perhaps already had the infrastructure to allow employees to work from home and give them the resources that they need. But what do you think is driving that?
Yeah, it is one of the most interesting things we've seen this year in this kind of resurgence of tech in our listings. Last year in the top 10, there weren't any tech companies in the top 10. This year, almost half the top 10 were tech companies. And I think, as you mentioned, one thing that tech companies did particularly well, particularly in a time of COVID, was many tech companies did put their workers first. They had the ability to send their workers home early, to provide more flexibility to their workers, and that's paid off. And the employees, for the most part, have really appreciated this, of feeling like they've been looked after by their tech companies. They appreciate that many tech companies have done well business-wise during this period, and so as a result, I think that's why we're seeing such great representation.
That said, employees of tech companies have become more outspoken, I believe, than ever before. And Google is number 6 on your list. But earlier this year, you had employees decide to form a union to protest and critique some of the broader policies at the company. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this emerges. To date, we haven't seen a ton of chatter on Glassdoor from employees of Google talking about the unions. And I think to put things in perspective, the union is still a few hundred employees, in an employee base that's over 100,000. But it will be interesting to see, how this influences the broader employee base over time. And I would expect that sentiment to be brought to Glassdoor's platform when it comes to Google's reviews.
Are there any trends that you see this year that have surprised you?
I think the most interesting thing is just the vast impact in COVID. So one area around being employers who are very proactive in looking after employees. Another thing we saw, again, related to the pandemic and the work from home environment, is that companies who were part of the response in some form also did well. So, outside of tech, we saw a lot of healthcare companies really doing well on this year's list. So Pfizer, made best places to work, and of course they've gotten a lot of attention to be part of the vaccine. And then you have Zoom and Slack, companies have been a major part of getting us all to be productive during this time, also doing really well in this year's list. So the pandemic had a big impact in this year's best places to work rankings.
So by looking at this list, what can other companies, perhaps those who aren't on it, take away in terms of how to better improve the experience at their own companies?
Yeah, traditionally we've seen it for the last 13 years, and it was still true this year. Companies that do a few things right. First is being very mission driven, giving their employees a kind of a greater purpose for what they do in their job is really important. Companies who provide career opportunities for their employees and really thoughtful around how they can progress their employees' careers, do well. And then last but not least, companies who have strong leadership who lead with transparency, and in times of crises, lead by putting their employees first. These are the types of things that really distinguish the best places to work winners from other companies who don't make the list.
And remind us how these lists are put together. I mean, you are sort of reliant on the number of employees who choose to share their reviews with you. How are you going to be working to continually improve your product and the authenticity of the opinions that essentially you are consolidating?
Yeah, we are the world's #1 platform when it comes to workplace transparency. And as we think about where our product direction is going, we're doubling down on helping people ultimately find a job and company they love, and answering the questions they have on, what's it really like to work there, what we get paid, and there's just so many questions that people today still want to know what it's like to work at a company that's really hard to find out if you're outside the company. And so we're really, really focused on that. We're really, really focusing on the authenticity of our reviews. That's paramount for us. At the end of the day, the value of Glassdoor is only valuable if our reviews are authentic. And so we put a lot of focus on making that so. And so, as you think about where we're going with our product, you're going to see a lot more of from Glassdoor when it comes to helping people ultimately find a job and company they love through transparency to what it's like to work at a company.
And have you taken any tips from some of the reviews in improving your own company?
Yeah, it's been a wild ride even for us as a company. We've tried to follow best practices, internally of also looking after our employees. We're also currently work from home. I'm working from my home right now. And really putting employees first and realizing this is a kind of a pretty stressful time as people juggle both their work priorities and their family priorities. And so being more understanding as an employer is something that's we're really thoughtful about as well.